Assalamu alaikum students. I hope you all are fine and safe at home. I am good too. This is week 5 and lecture number 2. Today's topic: nerves classification, central nervous system, brain and the division of the brain. Here are some objectives: to summarize the classification of the nerves and to list out the major parts of the brain and describe their role. First of all, we will discuss the sensory neurons. On the basis of the function, neurons are classified into 3 classes: sensory neurons, interneurons and motor neurons. Sensory neurons are those neurons which conduct the informations from the receptors toward the central nervous system, and sensory neurons have one dendrite and one axon only. Before that, we have discussed the shape of the nerve cells. That cell body of the nerve cells or neuron contains many dendrites and one axon. But in the case of sensory neurons, they have only one dendrite and one axon. You can see in the diagram, here is the cell body of the sensory neurons, only one dendrite and one axon. You can see here the sensory neurons and the motor neurons both. Sensory neurons are those neurons that can carry the sensory impulses from the organs to the CNS are known as sensory neurons, and the motor neurons are those neurons which carries the motor impulses from the CNS to the specific effectors. These are known as motor neurons. Students, you can see the difference of both. That motor neurons have many dendrites and they have a cell body. Sensory neurons have only one dendrite and they are having a cell body, one axon, and this is the difference between two. The next type is interneurons. Interneurons form brain and spinal cord. You can say the neurons or nerves which are present in the spinal cord and the brain, they are interneurons, and they receive the information, interprets them and stimulate the motor neurons. They have many dendrites and axons. So you can say they have many dendrites, they are having more dendrites than sensory neurons. They have one axon, they are having the myelin sheath, they have nodes of Ranvier. All the other parts of the neurons which the other neurons are having, they are also have. Here in this diagram, you can compare the motor neurons, interneurons and sensory neurons. Their difference: motor neurons are having cell body and dendrites, many dendrites, but interneurons have many dendrites, more than sensory motor neurons, and sensory neurons have only one dendrite and one axon. Now come to the motor neurons. Motor neurons carry information from the interneurons to the muscles or glands. They have many dendrites but only one axon. Students, you can say that the motor neurons have to perform the function, they have to carry the impulses from the interneurons to the muscles or glands. The muscles or glands are actually those organs which have to perform the function, which are effectors of the body. So motor neurons carry the information from interneurons to these organs. Here you can see, this is a diagram of the motor neuron. Okay, now the classification of the nerves. On the property of axons, we can classify the neurons on the basis of the axon property. The nerves are classified into 3 types: sensory nerves, motor nerves and mixed nerves. Sensory nerves are contains on the axons of the sensory neurons only. Motor nerves contain the axons of the motor neurons only, and the mixed nerve contains the axons of the both sensory and motor neurons. Students, you know the main structure of the neuron cell. It contains one cell body, dendrites and axon. Now, depending on the axon, there is a classification of the nerves. Now come to the brain. Brain is the central processing unit, you can say, in humans, in animals, and it controls all the activities of the human body. The structure of the brain is suitable to perform this function. Brain is situated inside the bony cranium part of the skull. Our skull is the protecting bone of the brain. Inside this cranium, brain is covered by three layers called meninges. Meninges protect the brain and also provide the nutrients and oxygen to brain tissue through their capillaries. So you can say these meninges or the layers of the brain provide the nutrients and the oxygen to the brain. Here you can see there are the parts of the brain: forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. And next the spinal cord is continue with the brain. The brain contains the fluid filled ventricles that are continuous with the central canal of the spinal cord. Fluid within ventricles and the central canal is called cerebrospinal fluid, CSF, cerebrospinal fluid. Now the division of the brain. Brain is divided on the shape of the brain is divided into three parts. There are three parts: forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. First of all, we will discuss the forebrain. Forebrain is the largest part of the brain and it is the most highly developed in humans. It is not much developed in animals, but in humans it is highly developed, and it has the following three parts: thalamus, hypothalamus and cerebrum. Thalamus. What is thalamus? Thalamus is the part of the forebrain and it lies just below the cerebrum. It serves as the relay center between the various parts of the brain and the spinal cord. It also receives and modifies the sensory impulses except from the nose before they travel to the cerebrum. Thalamus is also involved in the pain perception and the consciousness, sleep and awakening. So every part of the brain has its own specific functions, like the thalamus is controlling the sleep and awakening, the consciousness and the perception of the pain. These are the functions of the thalamus and it just lies below the cerebrum. You can say here, you can see the thalamus is present in the forebrain. Now the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus lies above the midbrain and just below the thalamus. In humans, it is roughly the size of an almond. One of the most important functions of the hypothalamus is to link nervous system and the endocrine system. Students, you will study the endocrine system in next lectures. Then there is a connection between the central nervous system and the endocrine system. Actually, I am briefly describing the endocrine system, that it contains the gland which produces or which releases the different hormones and they control the different functions of the body. It controls the secretions of the pituitary gland. It also controls the feelings such as dread, pain, pleasure and sorrow. These feelings are controlled by the hypothalamus. You can see here is the hypothalamus. Now the cerebrum. We are discussing the parts of the forebrain. Forebrain, the third part is cerebrum. Cerebrum is the largest part of the forebrain. Its function is to control the skeletal muscles, thinking, intelligence and emotions. It is divided into two cerebral hemispheres. So the cerebrum's function is also very important. Skeletal muscle of the whole body, like walking, running and all the voluntary movements are controlled by the cerebrum, and thinking, intelligence and emotions are also controlled by the cerebrum. Here you can see cerebrum. Cerebrum is also having more parts: frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobes and temporal lobe. 4 lobes are there. Students, today we have discussed only the forebrain. In the next lectures, we will discuss the midbrain and the hindbrain. Here are two video links. You can see them and your concept will be more clear about the brain. Here is your assignment. You have to write a note on forebrain and you have to describe the differences between the motor and sensory neurons with the help of the diagram. You can take help from the book, page number 36 and 37. You have to learn the forebrain, the parts of the forebrain, their functions and where they are situated. In the next lecture, we will study the midbrain and then we will study the hindbrain. Okay. Till then, Allah Hafiz. Thank you very much and see you in the next lecture. Allah Hafiz.